Alrighty, well this is the quote-unquote new vehicle. Just come back, there's my little receipt there, from the mechanics with it. It's an earlier model than what I've been driving. It's the previous model 2 years earlier. Needless to say, the steering wheels have a tendency to wear just a bit. She's a bit of a plasticky dash. Not that the other one wasn't, but the other one had a very flat dash, whereas this it's fairly curved. Last one was a dual airbag, where you get an airbag on the side and an airbag here, but this one's only the single airbag. And it doesn't really matter because there's only usually one person in it anyway, and that's me. So yeah, she's definitely a lot more plasticky looking and whatnot. But the oh, that's right. I feel the heater was working. Flimming thing's still on. And she's got air conditioning that actually functions, and I never really said much about this, but the previous one had some real issues with the locks, and it's not something you want to talk about on a regular basis because people can, break in and get shit. Not that they ever really saw the number plates on the last one, but oh yeah, and this one, the damn central locking actually works. And these ones have fairly slow central locking compared to my previous one, and fairly noisy, but it works, versus the other one where it sort of didn't work so well. I put my dash cam in here. Yeah, they got a fault that went, oh shit, it went for more than 10 years. It went from the EF, which is like the 95 model. This is the EL, which is the 97 model. I was driving the AU, which is 99 to 2002 or something like that. 2003 maybe. And then they had the Barra, which is the BA, and then there's the BF, which looked pretty much the same. All those models that went from, like 95 to, what was it, 2007 or something? The brake rotors never really handled the non-asbestos brakes. So the rotors were originally made for asbestos brakes, and then they started using all these non-asbestos brakes, and they couldn't handle it. And they overheated, and they get a warp in them. And so when you put the brakes on it, it'd jump, boop, 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 a bit like that. Chinese boss, his first car when he was in Australia, he was originally in America, believe it or not. Oh, Americans are very arrogant people. I'm thinking, why are Americans arrogant people? Because you actually had to pay them on time or something, or what? He spent a few years, 5 years in America, didn't like America at all, and then come over here. But his first car was like one of these, but like the fancy model. And they've still got it, and they still drive it just for vineyard purposes and stuff like that. It's got absolutely horrendous brake warp in it, and they reckon it's like a freaking jumps like a kangaroo when you put the brakes on. And this one's had a bit of trouble with that, not quite as bad, and that's what I've had replaced today with aftermarket brake rotors. And the pads had a little bit left in them, but in all honesty, they were coming to grief sooner rather than later. On occasion, they have troubles with the limit switches that run. This just decided to close itself just then. It has trouble with the limit switches, and sometimes the bastards will just decide to close themselves, or unlock, or close, unlock. I know a guy who had one like this. It'll keep closing and unlocking itself for 2 hours until I flatten the battery. I'm not joking. And my father's made a few modifications on that, so there we go. I don't know why it locked before. Maybe the switch is getting a bit dodgy. I believe it's, that one there as well. It's got another lock switch there. Yeah, this one's a station wagon. The last one I had was a sedan. Fortunately, we got the thing where you can put the seat down too. And this one's on propane as well. And that right there's a little switch, LPG, petrol, liquefied petroleum gas, i.e. propane, butane, petrol, which is gasoline. This is the one that had the dash taken apart to get the fan in, because although the heater and the air conditioner actually worked, whereas my last one, the air conditioner was just shit, was almost non-existent, although this one worked, the fan was dead. And this is not like a nice little device where you just, like some of these Chevs, where you just stick your head underneath the dash and you just, underneath the, underneath the dash where your feet go, and you get, the fan motor is like deep inside all this bullshit. And that's where he had a few issues, because the switch there, that of course was never put in new, and he stuffed up some of the leads, and then it turned off all the fuels, so you couldn't get either fuel to come through, because it's got solenoids that turn off the fuel lines and stuff like that as part of the conversion. It's got a little like a fuel richness computer thingy. It's just a little black box with a couple of lights on it that's under the hood, that runs through all this business. And a few other bits and bobs for it all. It's got cruise control. These buttons commonly fall off. But it's not bad. It's done... Fuck, this thing is misbehaving something chronic. It shouldn't be doing that. Might be having troubles with that bullshit again. I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if it isn't this switch just causing shit. And my dash cam goes on. The fan is sort of... I think the switch is not great. Sounds like the fan's constantly running. I honestly don't know why this lock's going on and off, and there is a way to fix all that, but I just hope it's not this little button here. And if it is, it's a simple solution, because I've got another one of those. But there we go. 362,000 Ks, so it's done a lot of miles, and no question about it. But it just seems, run so well. And the engine in this thing is bloody near perfect. It's had, like, power-wise, it's fantastic. It has had, there's my dash cam again, turn itself off. It has had troubles with leaking head, and they took the head off and put another head gasket on and all that sort of shit. They used one of those radiator stop leak additives to fix it, and it hasn't really been a problem since. That's the only issue with it. You got to watch the coolant levels and make sure it's not trying any bullshit with the coolant again, leaking into the piston head. But aside from that, the engine in this, honest to God, this is a basic grey rocker cover engine, whereas my one was the sports engine in it, the red engine. And yet somehow, even though this is a bog standard engine, it's damn near double the acceleration of my sports one. Long story short, this engine hasn't burnt out. My other engine really is getting to a point of burning out, which is one of the reasons I gave up on it, And half the evidence of that is 6-month-old plugs, month-old coil pack in the thing, and you're battling to get the bastard to start. It's just compression, I'm pretty certain. But this has got no compression issues or anything like that. And, as you can possibly see, the mechanic dropped me off. See there and there. That's fucking wheel spins digging the gravel up. That was him reversing back with this thing to turn it around there and then go back down my driveway and take it back to his workshop. There's power galore in this thing. So it's got a reasonably new, what's his name too, stereo system. I think I'm pretty certain he did change it at some point there. And it's got one of these leads that you can go straight out of your phone or your iPod or whatever, straight into the blooming thing and play stuff, which is good. The other one was just the bog standard Ford one. And, so anyway, that's the change. Not bad for $1,000, on propane and the whole lot. The tank's a little bit smaller. It's probably 3/4 the size of the other one, maybe 2/3, but, I've still got a fair blast of range in it all. Got the old sheepskin covers and all the bloody coffee stain. This really needs to be washed. The main thing that's a stuff up is this cup holder. They're frickin' shit. It's one of the worst cup holders I've come across. But I mean, if that's your biggest complaint in the vehicle, you don't have much problems. So, yeah, anyway, I think that's it really. Some of these buttons stuff up and don't want to change, so basically they just sit the way they are and stay like that, because if you get them off you mightn't get it back on. It's really sort of needs the air conditioner on to demist properly. It will demist without it, but there's sometimes where it starts to refog unless you have the aircon on, so that's sort of turned on pretty much on a permanent basis. Here's a little button here. It's towing mode that way and normal mode that way. It lets the engine run to another 500 revs per minute before it changes up to the next gear, and it stops your transmission from heating up and stuff like that. And that's the other thing. I got the transmission serviced on this. It hasn't been done in like 5 years or more. So I said, bugger it, we're doing it. My old man, for some reason, he doesn't like the idea of servicing transmissions. But I said, yeah, well, if we're going to do all this shit, we might as well service a transmission with it. So, yeah. New brake pads, new rotors, transmission service and all that business. And I think that's about all that... and I changed the oil in it last week, and I think that's about all we really need to get this thing going. I've actually just been driving up and down some pretty horrendous-assed hills to try and get the brake pads to sort of seat in and everything, and it brakes as smooth as smooth. You know, it's like blooming butter sliding on a laminated table. It just... perfect braking with it now, but of course they're not fully seated in yet, and within the next week or so they probably will be. But yeah,